Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your reaction to Ruben Amorim's press conference ahead of the massive Europa League tie involving Manchester United and Athletic Bilbao. Also, Garnacho was in the presence of Amorim taking questions as well. Good question put to Garnacho about how he's adapting to the new system and whether he preferred to be a winger and how difficult it's been adapting to that. But yeah, not really here for that. We will talk about that. But I think what we will ask him about is the Bruno Fernandes question and whether Bruno Fernandes is going to leave. We'll talk about that. Also, a huge update around De Ligt, a positive update about De Ligt. Relief about De Ligt there. It's not as bad as it could have been. We'll get into more detail about who's available tomorrow and what the story is with De Ligt in a moment. But let's talk about what everybody wants to hear about. Not Bruno Mars, Linda, Bruno Fernandes. Well, the message to the Saudis is quite clear, really. Bruno Fernandes has obviously been linked to them. They've put big money on the table for Manchester United and for Bruno Fernandes. So this is what Amorim had to say. And I was expecting to be saying Bruno stays, Amorim's Saudi message. I think we have to be fair and we have to change that to Bruno is ours, Amorim Saudi message, because I don't think you can read Bruno stays from what Amorim says. There's no firm message around that, and DJ is a bit bored with it. I don't think, well, you're entitled to be bored by it, mate, but this is our best player, and 50% of our fan base would let him go for that money, 50% wouldn't, and our manager's not saying he's not for sale. What he's saying is this: Bruno Fernandes is so important to the way we play. We need him as a player. We need him as a leader. It's normal others want him, but we want him here. He's one of the best players in the world. So that, to me, doesn't solve the argument here. We still await the Ornstein bomber or the Romano here we don't on Bruno, because this just seems a little bit like we said this morning. There is room for manoeuvrement. There is room to manoeuvre here. Are we waiting to see if we win the Europa League? Is his head turned? Are United trying to force him out because the money's so good? It's not the firm message I would have liked. And I'd certainly like to have that message from Bruno at some point. But I think what Amorim is saying is that, look, and he's probably been briefed on this, don't go out there and say he's a Man United player and he'll be here next season, which is the easiest thing in the world to say. And other managers have done it. And I think Sir Alex Ferguson would do it. And I think Ruben Amorim would do it. And I think Jose Mourinho would do it. If they knew 100% that Bruno Fernandes was not leaving and he'd be here next season, then you would get that message, he's here next season. Because he's certainly not going to Real Madrid. He's certainly not going to Bayern Munich. He's certainly not going to Man City to replace De Bruyne. Man United won't do those deals. But we're not in a position at the moment to say he's not for sale, he's going to be here. The door, in some ways, I suppose, is open. But it's very, very clear Amorim doesn't want him to go. It's his leader. It's the best player in the world, one of the best players in the world. We want to build with him. So Amorim doesn't want him to go. He's our player, but I would say the story's not over yet. The story's not over until somebody close to Bruno Fernandes puts it out to a journalist we trust that he'll be a Man United player next season. And until we get that, I'm afraid it's going to rumble on. And Amorim hasn't been able to give us that firm, he will be a Man United player. But clearly he wants him to be, and clearly the message is he wants him to stay. He's our player. He's one of the best players in the world, and he's important to what we're trying to build. So there we go. That's the update on that. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think he's staying? Do you think he's going? Do you think that's solved any problems, or do you think it's raised more? Do you think there's more uncertainty now? I would say there probably is until we get that big statement from Bruno. Let's talk De Ligt. I mean, look, we have a massive game tomorrow. We've got a few things to go through. I just want to say we've been linked to Moises Kean at lunchtime. Thankfully, I hadn't had my lunch. Otherwise, I'd have thrown it back up. I mean, I don't care how many goals he's scoring in Italy. He is not the solution for Manchester United in any way, shape or form. Yes, he might be experienced, but come on. there's a quality issue here. Absolutely no. We can't be doing deals like that. I'd rather take Liam Delap. At least he's played in the Premier League. So a few people have been talking about that. Absolutely no. But on injuries, the update ahead of tomorrow and the weekend is that Collier and Heaven are still not available. Those injuries have just sort of... I mean, the Collier one's weird. I mean, he's been out for nearly 2 months now. Heaven has been out for about a month. They were meant to be knocks, and both players are basically getting to the point where they might not play before the end of the season. So, yeah, look, they may be young players, but this was meant to be the breakthrough. I mean, I do worry about Collier. I think there's a good player there, but how old is Toby Collier? Let me have a quick look. It was meant to be his breakthrough season. He's 20... I mean, he's 21. He'll be 22 next season, and he's barely played. I like him, but, you know, he's had a lot of injuries this season. Heaven, not so worried about that. He's still very, very young, but I think he would have been a useful player if he'd stayed fit. But the big thing is De Ligt. These are the words of Ruben Amorim. Not serious, but not able to play tomorrow or on Sunday. So De Ligt, 2 weeks today is the cup final. Is there a chance De Ligt's back for the cup final? I want him back for that if we get there, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the fact that it's not 6 months, the fact that it's not ligament damage, I think is massively encouraging. And look, we can only take Ruben Amorim's words, but why would he say it's not serious, but he won't be available for the next 2 games if he's done his cruciate ligament? So I think we can sit here with a smile on our face and go, that injury is not what we thought it was when he was hobbling off at the weekend against Brentford. And I think that we're very fortunate in that situation, because when a player goes into a tackle like that, stays down and signals about his leg, and the experience that De Ligt will have had around injuries, I think he feared something had gone wrong there, and I think a lot of us were expecting the worst, and I think Ruben Amorim was expecting the worst. So to be able to sit there and say it's not is fantastic news. And whether De Ligt's back for the end of the season or not, he's definitely going to be ready for the start of the season, which was something that was probably in doubt a couple of days ago. So I take that as a huge, big positive and something to raise a smile today. Let's just go through some of the questions. We obviously had questions about to Garnacho, which we'll talk about, but let's go through what Ruben Amorim was asked about the game. He said, look, it's a mentality thing tomorrow. He said, I feel we're going to need to score a goal because anything can happen with this team. I mean, he was asked a couple of questions that he sort of doubled down. I mean, I love listening to Amorim, but he was asked about what he said a few weeks ago about this being the worst ever Manchester United Premier League side. And he said, well, we are. He was asked that again. He said, well, we are. On results, I think we're the worst team in the Premier League since I came here. But we could be the worst team in the Premier League history to win a European trophy. And I think, you know, that's the focus we have to have. On the game tomorrow, he was asked about whether United can be their own worst enemy, which I think we can be. We've seen that time and time again. And he said, look, we can't control the narrative with the... I thought this was brilliant. I thought this was absolutely brilliant. This was my favourite bit of the press conference. So he was asked about the question as to whether Manchester United are their own worst enemy. And he said, we can't control the narrative at the football club at the moment. He said there are certain teams out there where before a game, they've got a pretty good idea of how that game is going to go, where they can control the narrative. And I'd say you can't control the result, but you can control the way you're going to play because you know how you're going to play. If you look at Barcelona last night, they lost, but Hansi Flick would know the day before how they're going to play. He'd know how they're going to play against Real Madrid at the weekend. He'd know how they're going to play. He doesn't necessarily know the result, but they can control the narrative in relation to how they want to play, and then the result takes care of itself. There are teams like that know their system and know how they're going to play. So I thought it was very insightful for Ruben Amorim to say, we can't control the narrative of how we're going to play at the moment. And what he means there is, I haven't had my pre-season. I haven't got the players I need. These players aren't good enough to do the system I want to do, so we can't control the narrative. He said, I feel we need to score in the game, even though we're 3-0 up. I feel we do need to score. He said we have had instances like Brentford and Lyon where when we concede another one very, very quickly. So we have to, he said, we have to win the game, but we will have to suffer to win the game. It's hard to say what will happen. Sometimes we go into a game and we're doing well, something happens and we lose our mind, but we're improving, but we have to win this tournament. And I thought, you know what a very honest, and some people won't like it because it's too honest, because it's too real. It exposes the real issues too honestly. But I liked what he had to say. You know, it's true. He's not in a position at the moment where he can predict what's going to happen with this team. And some people would go, but he's the coach. He should be able to predict the future. He's not Harry Potter. He's Ruben Amorim. What he's saying is, I can send a team out and we know what we have to do, but I'm not in a position here to sit here and say we're going to win 3-0. You know, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Anything can happen with this team. It's out of our control a lot of the time. It's a mentality thing that we can control, but I can't control the narrative because I can't control the way we play because I haven't got the players to do that. And, you know, we are a bad team this season, but we can win this tournament. We have to do it. And I think, you know, he's been very, very consistent that we will suffer. Ever since he came in, he said we will suffer. And ahead of the game tomorrow, he's saying we will suffer, but we have to win. And we may well suffer by conceding 2 goals. But he's spot on. I agree with Mini Brew. He's absolutely spot on. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. If that was a Sir Alex team from 2008, I could tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. I know how we're going to play, and I've got complete and utter confidence that there's nothing Bilbao can do to hurt us with a 3-0 lead, and I actually think we'll beat them. With the team he's going to put out tomorrow, I don't know how we're going to play. We're very unpredictable. I don't know how it's going to go. But we have got a 3-0 lead. It is at Old Trafford, and we have to win. It's as simple as that. He's asked about the Bilbao game and what his thoughts are. He said, the only thing I can do is analyse the first 30 minutes from last week before the sending off. There's no point analysing against 10 men. But he said, look, you know, that game, we were a little bit open and we need to work harder in relation to that. And if we do that, then we've got a great opportunity. He was asked about Athletic Club having 3 key players out, both the Williams brothers, Anaki and Nico, and obviously Sansei. He said, it doesn't matter to me. We have to win one way or another, so it doesn't matter to me. He was also asked about Arsene Wenger, just a little bit off topic for a moment before we talk about some of what Garnacho had to say. So obviously Arsene Wenger has said that the Europa League winner shouldn't be going into the Champions League because there's too many English clubs in it. Amorim's response was, I know the rules. If they want to change the rules, that's fine. But I know the rules, and the rules are if you win this tournament, you go into the Champions League. So that's all there is to say on that. What I would say about that is, and I've said it a few times now, is that Arsene Wenger is absolutely missing the point here. The Premier League is nothing to do with UEFA. This is a UEFA Champions League, a UEFA Europa League, and a UEFA Conference League. And to promote and make their tournaments more appealing, they quite rightly have basically implemented a promotion system where if you win their UEFA Conference League, you go into the UEFA Europa League. And if you win the UEFA Europa League, you go into the UEFA Champions League. It works. It makes the tournament more enticing. It gives more of an incentive. It works really, really well. I would argue that UEFA would probably say we would rather the UEFA... We would, if Man United win the Europa League and we can only have 5 Champions League clubs, we would rather Man United went in and your 5th place club didn't. I would guarantee you UEFA would say that. So Wenger moaning about Man United or Spurs winning the Europa League, I think he's missing the point. Because if it was UEFA and they could only have 5 English clubs, they wouldn't change the rule to make their own tournament weaker. They'd just say you're only having a top 4 from the Premier League and it'll be the UEFA Europa League winners. So, you know. Let's talk about what Garnacho had to say. I liked this question to Garnacho. There was a couple of good questions to him, but I liked this one. Has it been hard to adapt to the Amorim system? Do you prefer being a winger or do you like this system? Didn't directly answer it, but answered it in a way that I thought was quite interesting. He said, it's difficult to adapt when a new manager comes in halfway through the season. And it's very hard when it's a different system. But we follow the rules and we are improving. And for me personally, it was difficult in November and December. but I've got the mentality that I've got to keep working, and that's all I want to do. He was asked about the rumours around his future, and he said, look, I know about the rumours, but I've got a contract until 2028. I'm happy here. I work hard. I train hard. And I'm available for all the games. And I think that's something we praise Garnacho. Sorry, we praise Bruno about. We praise Dalot about. But Garnacho's availability for a 20-year-old is remarkable. Like, there's something about certain footballers. We've seen it with Messi. We've seen it with Ronaldo. We've seen it with Bruno. And we've seen it with other players over the years. But these players are unique. Whatever you think about their ability levels, the ability to be available consistently is so important. And Garnacho's availability over the last 2.5 years is nothing short of incredible. I mean, touch wood, he's never injured. Now you compare that to we were just talking about Collier, who's older than Garnacho, can't stay fit. Mainu's had a few issues. So Garnacho's availability and how much he gets tackled and how intense he plays, it is very, very good. Now, I don't know whether that's genetics or mentality or professionalism or whatever, or higher pain thresholds. I don't know. But it is something certainly to shout about. I liked the answer to this question. I can't remember what the question was, but I think we'll all like it. He was basically, I think it was Laurie Whitwell who asked it, actually, to be fair. He was asked about like goals and assists and, passing more, etc., and whether he speaks to Rasmus. And he said, look, we are all improving and we are all working hard. I do speak to Rasmus. We talk, and it can be hard for him sometimes because obviously he wants certain things to happen, but we're all working hard together, and we do talk. And the more goals we score, the better the team is. So look, he's a 20-year-old. He frustrates me. I'm not going to sit here and say he doesn't frustrate me, but Anthony frustrated me. Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes frustrates me sometimes. Rashford frustrated me. This is not a Garnacho issue. He is a player that needs to improve on it, but we haven't really been a goal supply source for our striker for many years. So hopefully they can work on that together. He was asked also about the what else was he asked about? Analyze first minutes. He was also Garnacho also said again, it's not easy to change the manager in the middle of the season. All we can do is work hard and improve. And I think there was a running theme with that. I haven't heard Garnacho give that many interviews and be asked that many questions for quite a while. And it's interesting. I think it's always interesting because I think the fans can say it's not ideal to bring a manager in and change your system completely and not have a pre-season and not bring players in. And I think the manager can say that. And, maybe the media isn't very receptive to that. But I think when you stick a player out in front, like Garnacho has today, and he's on 2 occasions said it's really difficult on the players to mid-season lose a manager, but then have to change the system completely. I think that level of honesty is really, really important because Ruben Amorim didn't want this job until the summer, don't forget. It was Sir Jim Ratcliffe who basically laid the ultimatum of now or never down. And look, if we win the Europa League, people will forget this terrible season very, very quickly. And we will just go, maybe Sir Jim Ratcliffe was right. There's been a lot of pain. You look at the players that will be moved on. You look at the players that we're going to bring in. I certainly think in relation to exits and entries, transfer-wise, you're in a better position if you've had 6 months to look at the club rather than coming in mid-May. Well, when would Amorim have started his job? And I think it's always important to be even-handed here. I completely and utterly agree with Garnacho and Amorim and every one of you and myself that bringing Amorim in November and not expecting this to happen was very, very naive. But flip side of that coin is, if we win the Europa League, then, and it will be lucky in some sense, but if we win the Europa League, we're in the Champions League, and he gets his transfer window and his pre-season, but he also gets 6 months of looking at the team, deciding who is and who isn't good enough, as opposed to if we took Amorim on at the end of the season, Sporting still haven't won the league. It's not like Ten Hag who started the job mid-May. Like, Amorim would not be starting the job until June, which means he wouldn't be able to look at the likes of Anthony and Rashford until the pre-season tour, and then next season's pretty much a write-off. So I understand why Man United decided they wanted Amorim in, but the risk, of course, is just how damaging it's been in the Premier League, and the patience that runs out quickly with certain sections of the fan base and the media. Connor says, do you think the sale of Bruno could be our Coutinho moment? No is the honest answer, because I don't trust this ownership, Connor. I really, really don't. I think that people are getting very excited, like it's a game of Football Manager where you're going to have this lump of money to go and build your squad. I don't have any confidence that selling Bruno will lead to us buying players. In fact, the money thing annoys me. I've got to be honest, going back to Bruno, what annoys me is the amount of people going, we should do this deal. It's life-changing money. It's £120 million. Imagine what we could do with that. I don't like the money aspect of it. The money aspect is what gets me nervous if we did it, and I don't want to do it. But the money aspect gets me nervous because I'll tell you why. I look at it and I'm like, if you gave me the player, I want to know the players. I don't care about the money. If Bruno Fernandes goes, who are the players replacing him? That's the decision I would make off it. Not, 120 million quid, because you can spend 120 million quid badly. You can also not get 120 million quid. It can go on debt and everything else. So that's why I said this morning, if somebody said to me, Bruno Fernandes goes, but we get Costa in goal, Frimpong, Iheanacho, Edison, Cunha, and Gyökeres, I'd probably do the deal. I don't want to think about the money. The money's irrelevant. It's what we get in replacement. Do you watch or read the presses, says Fail CEO? No, mate. Basically, what I do is, I've been doing it for 10 years, really. So what I do is I wait for the press conference to finish that you can watch, and then I go live and I just make it up. Yeah, like, so Rooney's coming out. So Amorim said Rooney's coming out of retirement. That was sarcasm, by the way. Yeah, the reason I'm literally starting our show at 20 to 2 and the press conference happened at 1:15 is because I watch the press conference. I don't like going live when the press conference is happening because you can't do a live show, read your chat, and then listen to what somebody's saying. So no, I watch every single one. How confident are you we do Spurs in the final, says Paul? Not confident at all, because I don't want to play Spurs in the final. I want to play Bodo Glimt, and we're not there yet. Ask Beth to ask Amorim when he can control the narrative, says MMA Takedown. Press is overs, mate. Press is over. We're not live in there at the moment. It'd be a great thing to do. Imagine that. Yeah, Ruben, I've got another question. I've got MMA Takedown here. You talk about narratives. When are you going to get control of the narrative? I can answer you that question, though. Ruben Amorim will be in control of the narrative from the start of next season if we give him the players he needs. Inter showed the importance of experience, as Dominic. Didn't they just? Absolutely. You've got Pedri, you've got Yamal, you've got some young players in that Barcelona side. They're absolutely fantastic, but the experience of Inter every single time sat them back down. Jake says, so we can earn more points than Man City for a 5th Champions League spot, but we shouldn't play in it. Make it make sense, says Jake. Thank you very much. And Payne says, do you think Rashford and co would have still gone out or got sold if Amorim came in at the end of the season with his pre-season if they put in an effort? I think this is a great point. This is a great point. And in many ways, there is no definitive here. But should Amorim have been allowed to take the job in the summer? Loads of positives, doesn't have this ridiculous losing record, doesn't have a section of the fan base saying Amorim out, doesn't have a large section of the media looking to get him, gets a pre-season, gets a load of transfers before a competitive ball has been kicked. So they're all huge positives. On the flip side, if he'd come in the summer Rashford, Antony, maybe Sancho, Malacia, they wouldn't get sold. They wouldn't have been sold because they've got to have a few games for him to understand what they're all about. So they'd be players at Man United next season. So we'd potentially be stepping backwards to step forward. But then the pre-season, it's one of those. It's the worst mistake in the world if you don't win the Europa League. If you win the Europa League, it's the best thing ever. You already know what players to get rid of. You know what players you need. You're in the Champions League. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, really, but it's a good question, certainly, from Payne. Joel says, imagine getting the 2 or 3 good player profile players and they do not work. We lose one of our best players, which is rare to find in the last decade. Joel, I am still of the opinion that letting Bruno Fernandes go is a massive mistake unless he says he wants to go. But he might be forced out the door anyway. The money's that big and we're controlled by a business. I mean, this is the thing I've not heard anybody say, really. I mean, I sort of touched on it at the end of the news show this morning. But we're all talking moralistically here. Sell him to use Bruno as the sacrificial lamb that, basically, if you've ever seen Game of Thrones, Hodor or hold the door. That's Bruno, isn't it? You're basically asking Bruno to sacrifice himself so that everyone else can, escape. And that's what we're really asking Bruno to do. If you want to sell him, you're basically saying you can be the player that saves this football club and allows us to bring a load more players in for the future, which is, okay, that's absolutely fine. But that's a moralistic thing. People are saying we need to keep Bruno because he's so important to us. He embodies what we need. He's our leader. He's our best player, etc. People are saying sell him so we can buy better players. Very moral arguments. What we forget is our owners aren't moral. They're business people. This is not a football decision. This is a business decision. And that terrifies me because every decision they've made over the last 20 years have got nothing to do with the heartbeat of Manchester United. Manchester United are intrinsically linked with the European Cup. Sir Matt Busby basically got English clubs into the European Cup because he saw it and saw the future. And obviously, whilst competing in that in the early days, we had the Munich tragedy, which decimated the Busby Babes team and had to be rebuilt. And then we won the European Cup in '68 with the same manager. 10 years on, the European Cup is absolutely... We might not have won it as many times as Real Madrid or Liverpool, but our connection to that European Cup is very, very symbolic. For 18 months, the Glazers secretly were holding meetings to take us out of that tournament. So don't tell me that they're going to now sit there and go, Bruno Fernandes is the heartbeat of this club. We need to make a footballing decision, not a business decision. And that's what worries me. We are owned by businessmen and somebody's offering them a hell of a lot of money for an asset. That's all I'm saying. Some other players, it's pure profit and we're happy, says Robert McCormack. Yeah, but some of those other players don't deliver what Bruno Fernandes does he? Rashford doesn't deliver what Bruno does. Mainu doesn't deliver what Bruno does. I wouldn't sell Mainu, by the way. What is worth considering is the pull of Bruno to United. If Bruno leaves, potential signings may lose belief in the project and look elsewhere anyway, says Harry. Yes, Harry, great, very good comment from Harry Lancaster there. And I also think, just if you're tuning in a little bit late, Bruno's, in relation to Bruno Fernandes, it wasn't Bruno stays from Amorim. It was Bruno is ours, which is a very different message. Very, very clear that Ruben Amorim doesn't want him to go. Very, very clear that Ruben Amorim sees him as one of the best players in the world. Very, very clear that he understands that he's fundamental to his plan as a player and as a leader. And very, very clear that he wants him at Manchester United. But also acknowledge that it's normal that other clubs will want him. But he clearly hasn't been given the authority from those above him to say in that press conference he's a Man United player and he's going nowhere. And that worries me a little bit. I'm still 90% sure he's going to stay, but I'd like to be 100% sure. And I think when the manager is saying it's normal for other clubs to want him, but he's important to us, it's not the same as he's not for sale, he's going nowhere. And that just will, if you're Saudi the Saudi club looking at Bruno and you're listening to Ruben Amorim, that's not going to make you back off, is it? So sometimes there's no smoke without fire. Lil says, when's the preview? Very good question. To which I don't know the answer. It could be at 7 o'clock tonight. We are live at 7 o'clock tonight because I'm doing Arsenal PSG. That's football watch along last night for Barca Inter was absolutely incredible. And I'm hoping we'll get another game like that. So we'll be live at 7 o'clock on the United Stand tonight. We have got to do the preview for the Athletic game, and we will do it. But let's just see what the evening news is. If it's a slow evening news, we'll lead on the preview. If it's a busy evening news, then we'll put the preview out at a different time. Every player has their price, says Ken. No, I'm not. I don't live my life like that. I don't think you can buy everything. I don't agree. Everything has a price. Some things are priceless. People who have a lot of money think they can buy everything. I disagree. I disagree. Remember the analogy I said before? You don't need holidays. You don't need, a flash car. You don't need an amazing house. If you're with the people that you love, that's all that matters. In a footballing sense, does everybody have their price? Probably in the modern game. But Manchester United shouldn't be selling players just for the money. They should be selling them because they don't want them. They don't want Rashford anymore. They don't want Sancho anymore. We shouldn't be selling Manu, Garnacho or Bruno to raise money because we all want them to stay. That's the message I don't like. Bruno offered to pay for the staff Christmas party with his salary. He could take a salary cut like Tom Brady, but it can't be expected. Bruno embodies a lot of our values. As fans, we shouldn't push for him to leave at all, says Trina. Mate, if he goes, he'll be massively missed. That made me emotional. We can't lose our morals, says Jacob. Patrick Lynch says, Sir Jim Radcliffe was commenting previously how we had no 100 million player in our current squad. Now there is a 100 million possible bid. Look at all the young players they've bought in the hope they will become 100 million. They will only see the dollar signs, says Patrick. I will add to that, Patrick. And I will say, I'm very concerned about the volume of links we've had since January about the willingness to sell Garnacho and Manu. That's come from the club. At the other end of the spectrum, we're now talking about selling our best experienced player. So, on the one hand, we're willing to sell our young talent. On the other hand, we're willing to sell our most experienced player. So, don't tell me we're not a selling club. Since when did Man United become a selling club? What's going on with Manchester United? What's going on with our fan base? Why are the Glazers still here? Why are we putting up with this? Is it just, we've given up and it doesn't really matter what happens? We're literally publicising ourselves as a selling club. Where's the strong message that this is not happening? We're not selling Garnacho. We're not selling Manu. We're not selling Bruno. Money talks to this football club. Since when did Manchester United become a bloody business? Oh yeah, we've for 2 decades. 2 decades it's been like this. I understand the people that go, the money's ridiculous, let's do it. But the fact that you trust that money to hit the Glazers' bank account and come back out to Ruben Amorim is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Rashford's not delivered what Bruno has. Robert, I'm not doing a Bruno versus Rashford argument because you're just going to get bullied. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Robert's arguing about Rashford being better than Bruno. Lovely stuff. It's all about opinion. We really enjoy it. Take care, everyone. I'm back at 7 o'clock. We're live then, maybe 6:30. We'll see what happens. But yeah, really good press conference from Ruben. And of course, we've got a big game tomorrow that we've just got to get through. And I'm certainly not taking it for granted. Speak to you all in a bit. Take care.